A widow farmer donated her harvest to a flooded village days later. A billionaire's yacht docks at a nearby port with an unexpected offer that changed everything. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment where in the world you're watching from. Let's go. In the rolling farmland just beyond the harbor town of Clearwater Bay, life had never been easy for Lily Goodwin. At 38, she was already a widow, having lost her husband in a tractor accident 3 years prior. Despite her grief, she refused to abandon the land they had toiled on together. Over time, word spread of her resilience. A woman alone, managing a modest plot that yielded just enough corn and wheat to keep her afloat. But there was something in Lily's quiet determination that made the local community look to her for hope, especially in times of crisis. One humid morning, the skies opened in a torrential downpour that lasted for days. The river running through Clearwater Bay surged, spilling over its banks and flooding the low-lying village along the delta. Families scrambled to salvage what they could, but the waters rose so quickly that many lost their homes and possessions in a single night. Roads were washed out, fields became swamps, and the heart of the village, those quaint streets lined with wooden storefronts, now lay underwater. When Lily heard the news, she wasted no time. She hauled her old truck out of the barn, loaded it with every bag of grain she had in storage, and drove as far as the flooded roads would allow. Then, with the help of volunteers, she ferried the provisions by small fishing boats to the families stranded on higher ground. She didn't ask for money. She didn't demand favors. She simply handed out sacks of cornmeal and flour, instructing parents on how to make it last until further aid arrived. Locals whispered in awe, wondering how a single woman, someone who barely made ends meet, could be so generous. Yet Lily's only response to their gratitude was a gentle smile. For days, she worked alongside rescue teams, distributing what little she had saved for the next planting season. Her neighbors urged her to hold back some supplies for herself, but Lily refused. "They need it more than I do," she insisted whenever someone told her she was being reckless. She recalled her husband's final words, how he had always believed that true wealth lay in kindness, not in coins, and so she gave. By the end of the week, her stores were nearly empty, yet the simple act of helping others filled her with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt since her husband passed away. The national news caught wind of her selflessness. A local reporter took photographs of Lily in mud-caked boots, unloading sacks of grain from her battered truck. The picture circulated online, prompting a flurry of social media praise. Strangers began calling her the Angel Farmer, though she blushed at the nickname. Before long, short clips of Lily's efforts found their way into morning shows, with hosts commending her spirit. In a world that often overlooks the rural heartland, it's refreshing to see an everyday hero, one anchor proclaimed. Lily tried not to pay attention to all that attention. The floodwaters were still receding, and many families remained displaced, so she put her focus on replanting what meager seeds she had left in her own fields and helping neighbors rebuild. What Lily didn't know was that her story had captured the attention of someone far beyond the farmland. In a glimmering city of skyscrapers and oceanfront penthouses, a man named Felix Broadwater, reputed billionaire and venture philanthropist, watched the coverage with an inscrutable expression. He clicked on every article he could find about Lily Goodwin, studying her face as if it held answers to unspoken questions. Felix was known for his surprise gestures, sometimes grand philanthropic stunts, other times baffling property acquisitions. Some whispered that he was a visionary who loved uplifting rural communities. Others insisted he was just another mogul seeking publicity. Regardless of motive, whenever Felix Broadwater took interest in a place, waves of change inevitably followed. Nobody in Clearwater Bay expected to see a sleek white mega-yacht anchor at the quiet harbor. The villagers, still recovering from the flood, found themselves gawking at the vessel's curved lines and multiple decks, a vision of modern luxury that seemed utterly out of place amid the fishing boats and battered trawlers. The yacht arrived on a Sunday morning, guided by local harbor pilots. Whispers raced through the market stalls. "Did you see that? Looks like something from a billionaire's playground." Children pestered their parents, hoping to catch a closer glimpse. The harbor office had never processed a vessel so large, and the workers scrambled to find a suitable berth. Speculation spread like wildfire. Some swore it was a Saudi prince on a secret visit. Others heard rumors of a tech tycoon searching for solitude. The flood had made local headlines, but no one imagined that coverage alone could draw such extravagant interest. And so the townspeople waited. Nothing happened the first day. No lavish parties, no helicopters. It just floated there, crew members discreetly resupplying from the local grocer. The second day, a rumor circulated that the yacht's owner was at the new resort in the next county. The third day arrived with no sign of the mysterious billionaire, and the buzz began to settle. Then, early in the morning on the fourth day, a single black SUV rolled through the muddy roads leading out of town. It passed the damaged shops, the newly erected sandbag barriers, and the humble homes still drying out from the recent flood. No one recognized the driver, a somber man in a crisp suit, but it was clear he wasn't from around here. Locals watched from their porches, curiosity overtaking caution. The SUV advanced until it reached the quiet farmland on the edge of the valley. Finally, it turned down a gravel lane that led to Lily Goodwin's place. Lily was in her yard, trying to fix a broken fence post that had splintered when the rains washed part of it away. At first, she assumed the vehicle belonged to a lost traveler. Most visitors arrived in pickups or battered sedans, not glossy black SUVs. She stood, wiping sweat from her brow and adjusting her sun hat. The driver stepped out, impeccably dressed, shoes polished to a mirror sheen. "Miss Goodwin?" he asked, his voice formal. "I'm Brian Shaw. I represent Mr. Felix Broadwater." He extended a hand, which Lily cautiously shook. She noticed how clean his manicured nails were against her own dirt-caked fingers. Before Lily could respond, Mr. Shaw continued, "Mr. Broadwater requests the pleasure of your company on his yacht tomorrow evening. He has a business proposition to discuss." Lily tilted her head, taken aback. Why on earth would a billionaire want anything from her? The harvest donation had garnered attention, yes, but she was no high-flying entrepreneur. She glanced behind Mr. Shaw, half expecting cameras or an entourage, but saw only the gleaming SUV. Lily asked the obvious question. "I'm grateful for any interest in the relief efforts, but why me?" Mr. Shaw simply smiled. "Mr. Broadwater admires your recent actions. He believes a conversation in person would be most beneficial. He's prepared to make a substantial, charitable offer if you're open to hearing him out." The next words were delivered with polite finality. "He's also arranged for a formal dinner to honor your contribution to the flood victims. Transportation will be provided. Shall I confirm your presence?" Unsure how to respond, Lily hesitated. She still needed to replant sections of her field, plus help rebuild her neighbor's damaged sheds. She'd never left the farm in the hands of anyone else. Yet the thought of refusing a chance to secure more aid for her struggling community seemed unwise. "I suppose I can come," she said quietly, feeling a mixture of apprehension and curiosity. Mr. Shaw nodded, handing her a sleek business card. "We'll pick you up at 6 tomorrow. Please dress comfortably, though a bit more formal might be appropriate." With that, he turned and got back into the SUV, leaving behind a swirl of dust. That afternoon, Lily tried to focus on her chores, but her thoughts wandered constantly to the invitation. She couldn't help worrying that she was stepping into a world she didn't understand. It wasn't the first time an outsider had come in with big promises, some well-intentioned, others purely exploitative. Was this simply a publicity stunt for a wealthy man wanting to be seen as charitable? Or could it be an honest chance for her battered village to get real assistance? The following day, she could barely keep her hands steady as she brushed her hair and slipped on a plain navy dress, one of the few nice items she owned. At precisely 6, the black SUV reappeared, driven by a different attendant this time. Without fanfare, she was whisked away toward the port. As the harbor came into view, Lily felt a jolt of surprise at the sight of the massive yacht gleaming under the sunset. People on the docks paused to stare as the SUV arrived at a makeshift red carpet laid on the pier. Lily stepped out, heart pounding. The yacht's crew welcomed her aboard with professional courtesy, guiding her along polished teak decks to a private dining salon. Inside, subdued lighting revealed a lavish table set with crystal glassware and elegant china. Soft, instrumental music played, creating an atmosphere that felt light years away from her simple farmhouse. She swallowed, wondering if she should have worn something fancier. Then a tall figure appeared at the far entrance. "Welcome, Ms. Goodwin," the man said, extending his hand. "I'm Felix Broadwater." His voice was warm, and he wore an impeccably tailored suit with the casual ease of someone for whom luxury was second nature. Yet there was a gentleness in his eyes that put Lily somewhat at ease. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me," he said, leading her toward the dining table. "I've been looking forward to this conversation." As they sat, Lily's thoughts whirled. She recalled her late husband's presence, imagining how he'd laugh at the sheer absurdity of her having dinner on a billionaire's yacht. Summoning her courage, she managed a polite smile. "I'm sure you have a reason for all this," she said, gesturing at the opulence. "I'm grateful for your invitation, but I should tell you, I'm not in a position to pay back any fancy investments." Mr. Broadwater chuckled softly. "Who said anything about payback? I'm here to discuss an offer that might help everyone in your region, including you. First, let's enjoy a meal. We'll talk afterwards." Lily nodded, uncertain yet intrigued. As servers approached with artfully plated courses, she prepared herself for whatever might come. Was this truly a philanthropic gesture, or would she find out it came laced with hidden conditions? Either way, there was no turning back now. Before we continue, let us know. Does this story draw you in? Do you feel the tension between Lily's humble life and the billionaire's mysterious intentions? If so, get ready, because the next phase of this journey will reveal secrets neither Lily nor her neighbors could have predicted. Lily's initial uncertainty lingered even as she watched the first course arrive, a delicately prepared seafood dish placed before her by a silent, efficient server. She'd never dined amid such refinement, and the sight of crystal glasses and embroidered napkins felt almost surreal. Felix seemed to sense her discomfort. He leaned forward, speaking in a soft tone that belied the grandeur around them. "I understand this must feel strange," he said, gesturing at the glittering silverware. "I grew up in a noisy home. Too many siblings, always fussing about bills. Even now, I sometimes find all this pomp a bit much." His candor caught Lily off guard, and she found her tension easing, if only slightly. Still, she reminded herself to stay cautious. With so much at stake for her neighbors, she couldn't let her guard down just because of a warm smile. They ate slowly, exchanging small talk about the damage the recent floods had caused. Lily described the lost livestock, the battered storefronts, and how families were still living in makeshift shelters. Felix listened attentively. Whenever Lily paused, he asked direct questions, seeking more detail. At one point, she noticed him scribbling notes on a small notepad. Although she wasn't used to being the center of attention, she pressed on, determined to make him understand how dire things were. "It's not just about the water receding," Lily explained. "People lost seed stock, fertilizer, everything they'd need to keep planting. If the fields aren't reseeded soon, there won't be a harvest come fall. More than half the families there rely on agriculture, and if they don't have a crop to sell, they'll be in worse debt next year." She took a sip of water, feeling suddenly exposed by the intensity of his focus. Felix nodded gravely, setting down his fork. "That's precisely why I want to help. My philanthropic foundation has worked with small towns before, mostly overseas. But seeing your story reminded me that there are crises in our own backyard we often overlook." Lily appreciated his directness, yet she still wondered what exactly he had in mind. Charity, in her experience, could be a double-edged sword. Sometimes it rescued people, but sometimes it created dependencies or arrived too late, tangled in bureaucracy. Before she could ask further, Felix gestured for the next course. The server cleared their plates, replacing them with a savory dish of roasted vegetables and fragrant herbs. Once the server stepped away, Felix's tone shifted to something more private. I believe a long-term solution involves rehabilitating farmland, improving access to better infrastructure, and creating new revenue streams. He paused to see if Lily was following. Rebuilding alone isn't enough. The community needs something sustainable, perhaps a co-op model, or training in modern irrigation techniques. Lily listened carefully, biting her lip in thought. She liked the idea of improving farmland for everyone, but she also recalled times when outside experts had come in and tried to overhaul local ways, ignoring traditions and local knowledge. She wanted to be sure any initiative respected the community's identity. She put down her fork. We definitely need new ideas, she agreed. But we can't lose what makes us who we are. Folks around Clearwater Bay have always prided themselves on neighborly support. They won't take kindly to outsiders telling them what to do. Her eyes flicked around the lavish surroundings. No offense meant, she added softly. Felix inclined his head, a small smile on his lips. None taken. In fact, I'm counting on you to show me how best to help, so my efforts don't turn into a top-down project that fails. He set his napkin aside. I'd like to propose an agricultural partnership where my foundation provides grants, equipment, and training for as long as needed, with you as a local liaison. You'd have authority to veto or adapt any plan that doesn't fit the region's culture. Lily felt her pulse quicken. The notion sounded promising, but it also meant taking on a massive responsibility. She was only one person, a widow who'd managed to keep her farm going through sheer stubbornness and a bit of luck. Could she really guide a billionaire's foundation through the complexities of an entire region? That's a big undertaking, she murmured. I'm not sure I'm qualified. Felix chuckled. After what you did during the flood, I'd say you're more qualified than most. You had every reason to hoard your harvest, yet you gave almost everything away. And the fact that I'm sitting here discussing any of this is because your story resonated with me. You're the beating heart of Clearwater Bay. If I can't trust you to help direct these resources, then I might as well anchor this yacht somewhere else. She blushed, uncertain how to accept such praise. I'm flattered, but I need to think carefully about this. Folks trust me now, sure, but if something goes wrong, I'll have to answer for it. Felix's expression softened. Of course, we won't rush. For tonight, let's call this an open conversation. I want you to see my operation and meet the foundation team. They'll arrive tomorrow morning, and we'll talk through our ideas in more detail. If you decide it's not right, no hard feelings. But I believe we can do real good here if we work together. As dessert was served, a delicate confection topped with fresh fruit, Lily felt tension slipping into an odd sense of possibility. She recalled her farm, the dried-out fields, the empty grain silos. If she refused his help, she'd have to start from scratch next planting season, with limited resources and no safety net. Meanwhile, her neighbors would struggle just as much. The risk might be high, but the potential benefits were enormous. She looked up to find Felix watching her, his gaze encouraging. All right, she said softly. I'll at least meet your team and hear them out. By the time dinner ended, Lily's head swam with information. Felix escorted her onto one of the yacht's open decks, where the night air was crisp and a half-moon glimmered on the dark water. She inhaled the salt breeze, trying to stay calm. I grew up in farmland, too, Felix said quietly, his voice carrying a hint of nostalgia. Small place in the Midwest. My mother always said, you can measure a town by how they treat each other when the crops fail. I suppose I've taken that to heart more than most. Lily studied his profile, searching for any sign of deceit. So far, she had found none. Only sincerity. Yet caution lingered in her bones. She folded her arms, letting the wind blow through her hair. "I hope your mother's words are right," she finally replied. "We'll need everyone's compassion for what lies ahead." Moments later, one of the staff approached to inform them that the SUV was ready. As Felix walked her down the gangplank, he thanked her again for making time. She gave a polite nod, stepping onto the pier. The whole evening felt like a dream she might wake from. She couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't predict. The black SUV started its engine, and Lily turned back for a final glance at the yacht's silhouette against the harbor lights. She had the faintest sense that another chapter was opening. For better or for worse, tomorrow would bring something wholly different. Back home, Lily barely slept. She sat at her kitchen table long past midnight, flipping through a battered notebook where she kept accounts of her farm expenses. Lately, the numbers had looked grim. She was behind on equipment repairs and had nearly depleted her savings. The day's events replayed in her mind: the refined dinner, Felix's unwavering focus, his promise of grants and equipment, the mention of a real partnership. She thought of the battered stores in town, the families who might never rebuild without some kind of robust assistance. Maybe, just maybe, he was telling the truth. Morning arrived with thin gray clouds overhead. Lily forced down a quick breakfast, then busied herself repairing a fence panel by the chicken coop, trying to keep her hands occupied until Felix's team arrived. Sure enough, at precisely 10, 3 more vehicles appeared on her dirt driveway. From them emerged a small group: a logistics expert with a bright smile, a soft-spoken agronomist, a local coordinator from the county extension office, and a legal advisor who introduced herself politely. Each was courteous, asking about Lily's immediate concerns. She noticed how they listened carefully, taking notes whenever she described her neighbor's obstacles. It was a refreshing change from the usual scenario, where fancy consultants showed up with prepackaged solutions. The agronomist took a keen interest in Lily's fields, praising the soil's potential if given better drainage. The logistics expert asked about the local co-op, wanting to know how products normally got to market. The legal advisor explained how grants could be structured to ensure farmers retained autonomy. "We want to empower you," she said, "not control you." Lily found herself feeling strangely optimistic. They spent the day touring the hardest-hit parts of Clearwater Bay. Lily led them along the roads still marred by dried mud, pointing out places where the flood had done the most damage. At every stop, a cluster of curious onlookers gathered, whispering questions. Who are these people? Do they really have the money to help us? Lily fielded what questions she could, but she saved the bigger answers for the town meeting scheduled that afternoon. Word had spread that Felix Broadwater's representatives would appear at the community hall, so nearly everyone made time to attend. By 3 o'clock, the modest building was packed. Voices echoed off the wooden walls as farmers, shopkeepers, fishermen, and local teachers squeezed onto benches. Lily stood at the front with Felix's team, nerves fluttering in her stomach. She'd never been fond of public speaking, but folks were looking to her for reassurance. When the chatter died down, she cleared her throat. "Thank you all for coming," she began, hands clasped before her. "You know me, and you know I wouldn't stand here if I didn't believe there might be a real chance for us to recover together. Mr. Broadwater's foundation wants to offer help, but I've made it clear that help must respect our way of life." She paused, searching the crowd. She saw her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Kruger, eyes narrowed skeptically. She spotted the mechanic's son, who still walked with a limp after a misfortune in the flood. A hush settled as everyone waited for details. Lily signaled for the logistics expert to take the floor. He explained how the foundation aimed to provide immediate relief: seeds, livestock feed, essential repairs, and also a longer-term plan: new irrigation lines, modernized silos, and training in soil preservation. The agronomist chimed in, discussing the improvements that might boost crop yields over time. The legal advisor assured them there was no hidden catch, just a requirement that all recipients follow basic guidelines to ensure fairness. When the floor opened for questions, skepticism surfaced. "Why would a rich outsider care about our little town?" demanded one older man, crossing his arms. "What do they get out of it?" The foundation team handled the query politely, pointing out that philanthropy often has intangible rewards. But Lily sensed a deeper hostility. People had been let down before. It was natural for them to doubt big promises from strangers. She stepped forward. "I've met Mr. Broadwater," she said steadily. "He's offered me no reason to distrust him. He wants to invest in our future, not just throw money at problems. If we're wise, we'll make sure that investment aligns with what we need." Another voice called out, "And if he pulls out after we're dependent on him?" Lily felt the weight of that question. She glanced at the legal advisor, who nodded for her to continue. Lily chose her words carefully. "I asked that too. That's why the plan involves the local co-op, so ownership stays in our hands. The foundation will help set things up, but we'll be the ones running it. If he ever leaves, we'll still have the resources and training." A tentative round of applause broke out, though some remained unconvinced. Still, Lily could see hope flicker in weary faces. By evening, the meeting wound down with a general sense of cautious optimism. The foundation team gathered feedback forms, promising to incorporate local concerns before finalizing any proposal. People trickled out, whispering about the possibilities: new equipment, restored farmland, maybe even expanded markets for future harvests. Lily's shoulders sagged from exhaustion. She walked home alone, reflecting on the day. Was she leading her town toward salvation or, inadvertently, into dependence on a stranger's whim? When Lily reached her farmhouse, the last glow of sunset lit the horizon. She fed her chickens, checked on the goats, then slumped onto the porch, head in hands. A gentle breeze rustled the nearby rows of half-drowned corn. "You'd know what to do," she whispered, imagining her late husband's presence. She closed her eyes, recalling how he always believed good hearts, not just good deals, shaped a community's success. After a few moments, she rose, determined to give this partnership an honest chance. Tomorrow, she'd meet with Felix again. They still had to iron out details, but if this was the path to a better future for Clearwater Bay, she'd walk it, no matter how uncertain it felt. The next morning, Lily woke to the patter of rain on her windowsill. By midday, she was due to meet Felix at the reopened library, where local leaders drafted community plans. She pulled on her boots, trying to shake off the nervous energy that had kept her awake. She dreamed of fields underwater and distant voices whispering she was making a risky choice. Still, the promise of real aid spurred her onward. Today, she would see if Felix's ambitions could match Clearwater Bay's urgent needs. She found solace in routine. After feeding chickens and checking the goats, Lily drove past roads still scarred by dried mud. New banners proclaimed "Clearwater Strong," and boarded-up storefronts sported defiant murals. Even amid hardship, hope stirred. She parked at the library, a modest brick building that had reopened after the flood. Inside, a hush greeted her as she joined a circle of townspeople and Felix's team, all bracing for a pivotal discussion about the philanthropic plan that might reshape their battered community. Commissioner Howe, tall and gray-haired, initiated the meeting. "We're here to review Mr. Broadwater's proposal," he said, eyeing Lily. "It seems you're central, Ms. Goodwin." She managed a small smile, uneasy with the attention. Felix stood near the old wooden desk, his foundation team flanking him. Two other commissioners, the fire chief, a bank manager, and the school's representative waited for details. Felix outlined an immediate infusion of grants for seed and feed, plus infrastructure upgrades and a training program. Lily watched the crowd's guarded expressions. When Felix described how decisions would rest with local committees, a flicker of relief passed over a few faces. "We can't guarantee miracles," Felix said, "but we can offer resources. Your leadership will shape the outcome." Commissioner Howe asked tough questions about oversight, worried about fairness. Felix assured them all expenditures would require community sign-off, with Lily among the key voices. "We don't want top-down control," he repeated. Lily exhaled, hoping this transparency would calm suspicions, though she knew some in town remained deeply wary. The meeting lasted over an hour, concluding with a tentative consensus. The teacher, Mr. Barnes, asked about scholarships for local youth. Felix said yes, more would come in future phases. Lily felt a swell of optimism. So many families feared they had no future beyond rebuilding battered homes. As folks drifted out, Lily exchanged polite smiles with the commissioners. Outside, Felix joined her on the library steps. "They're cautious," he said, "which I respect. I'm prepared to show results before expecting full trust." Lily and Felix grabbed coffee from a food cart near the pharmacy. Nervous onlookers gave polite nods. Lily asked Felix about his background, and he revealed how his father lost everything to drought when Felix was a teen. "I want to prevent that for others," he said. They strolled along battered sidewalks, discussing potential ecotourism. Lily described how floods were more frequent, how neglected levees upstream made things worse. Felix suggested forming a water council. Lily admitted the scope felt daunting, but his earnestness soothed her doubts. Returning home, Lily felt hope blooming. She milked goats, gathered eggs, and locked the barn as dusk fell. Moments later, her neighbor Hank arrived, wearing a deep frown. He'd heard rumors that outside money might mean land grabs. Lily insisted the foundation wanted no ownership, just to help. Hank sighed, warning that if everything went sour, it would be Lily who took the blame. She felt a pang of fear, yet stood firm. "I'm watching every detail. I won't let them push us out." After Hank left, Lily sank into her kitchen chair, burdened by the trust placed in her. She thought back to the day of the flood, how she distributed her harvest without hesitation. Now the stakes were even higher. An entire region's future lay in the balance. Yet, she sensed Felix was genuine, and her neighbor's resilience gave her courage. Gazing at the moon through her window, she prayed silently for wisdom, vowing to be the bridge between cautious farmers and a billionaire's hope. The following week unfolded in a blur of planning. Lily attended daily briefings with the foundation staff and local committees. They mapped out which farmers needed seeds first, which roads had priority for repair, and how to coordinate volunteer crews. The county commissioners proposed setting up a transparent ledger so everyone could track the flow of funds. Lily agreed wholeheartedly. By Friday, a preliminary schedule of projects had emerged, with each day's tasks assigned to specific teams. For the first time in months, momentum felt real. Still, opposition simmered. A retired store owner circulated pamphlets claiming the foundation aimed to strip away local heritage. Lily confronted him gently, explaining the plan's community-driven approach. While some softened, others clung to distrust. At the next public forum, critics grilled Felix's legal advisor about contract fine print. Lily spoke up, reminding everyone that no farmland titles would be transferred, only grants and loans, all optional. The tension gradually eased, though a handful of skeptics stalked off, muttering about illusions. Amid the friction, Lily discovered an unexpected ally in an unlikely place. Jenny Park, a local mechanic's daughter, had strong online reach. She volunteered to record interviews with farmers benefiting from the new seeds and repairs, posting updates on social media to counter rumors. Lily saw how these short videos reached beyond the region, drawing donations from small donors. Felix's team smiled at the grassroots synergy. Lily felt relief. Maybe not everyone was convinced, but real progress was visible day by day. Late one evening, Lily took a walk down by the riverside. Repairs on the levees had just begun, thanks to county workers and foundation funds. Standing on the muddy bank, she remembered how the floodwaters had raged. A faint memory of her husband flickered in her mind, the way he had championed neighborly unity. She murmured softly to the night air that she hoped she was honoring his legacy by risking so much now. In her heart, she believed the risk was worth it. As the days passed, supplies rolled in. Pallets of fertilizer, crates of tools, new pump systems for irrigation. Felix's foundation team supervised deliveries while Lily coordinated distribution among farmers. There were hiccups. One shipment arrived late, forcing a farm to delay planting, and a rumor spread about certain families receiving preferential treatment. Lily and the commissioners addressed each issue openly, inviting everyone to see the logs of who got what. Bit by bit, trust grew. The farmland, once saturated with floodwaters, now offered glimmers of rebirth. A month into the project, Felix returned to Clearwater Bay, docking his yacht again. This time, local children waved from the pier. He stepped ashore to tour the reinforced roads and talk with families who had replanted. An elderly farmer gripped his hand, murmuring, "Never thought I'd trust a man with your kind of money." Felix smiled, clearly humbled. Lily watched from the sidelines, heart brimming with relief. Despite obstacles, the vision she'd once doubted was becoming reality. That evening, Lily hosted Felix for a simple barbecue on her farm. Smoke curled from the grill, and the air smelled of grilled corn and fresh lemonade. Neighbors drifted over, curious to meet the foundation staff. Someone played guitar, children chased each other near the coop, and for a few hours, all tension seemed to vanish. Felix helped serve plates, joking he'd never grilled so many ears of corn. Lily found herself smiling at his easy warmth, thinking how surreal it was to share laughter here. As twilight deepened, Lily sat with Felix on a wooden bench, lulled by the chirping crickets. He mentioned a ceremony where the county planned to honor her for her flood relief. She shrugged, insisting the real heroes were those who rescued neighbors. Felix quietly pointed out that none of this revitalization would exist without her faith in a stranger's promise. He offered a smile. Lily gazed at the starlit sky, recalling her old fears and newfound hope. Softly, she said, "Maybe we both took a leap we didn't think possible." 1 week after the barbecue, Clearwater Bay was abuzz with cautious optimism. Lily found herself juggling 2 roles, farmer and liaison. By dawn, she tended her animals, inspected her crops, and repaired equipment. By midday, she was mediating between Felix's foundation and local committees. And in the evenings, she tried to calm her swirling thoughts while recording notes for the next day's tasks. The work was relentless, but oddly invigorating. Neighbors who once eyed her with suspicion now waved when she drove by, and more than a few asked whether they could volunteer. For a place that had nearly drowned, the community felt alive again. Still, not everyone was on board. A handful of families remained convinced that outsiders only helped themselves. One man even told Lily flatly that he expected property taxes to skyrocket or farmland to be seized for private gain. Lily tried to reassure him that the foundation's plan had no angle on local titles, but she left that conversation unsettled. She realized that scars from past disappointments ran deep. Though progress was visible, fresh seeds in the ground, new pumps drawing water away from vulnerable spots, pockets of doubt persisted. As the weeks passed, Felix set up a temporary operations office in the old postmaster's building. The space bustled with staff, updating spreadsheets, phoning supply companies, and liaising with the county. Lily occasionally pitched in, handing out coffee and sorting brochures. It was a surreal sight. Computer monitors glowing in a building that smelled of aged paper and dust. Yet that blend of old and new symbolized the entire project. At lunch breaks, Lily joined the staff outside under a shade tree, discussing yield projections, upcoming repairs, or the next town hall schedule. While working together, Lily and Felix discovered a comfortable rhythm. They could banter about small things, his clumsy attempts at farm labor, or her amusement at the yacht's extravagance. She saw beneath his polished exterior a man driven by a longing to right old wrongs. He was also a good listener, encouraging local folks to voice their perspectives. Slowly, Lily felt her guarded posture soften. She admired his willingness to find consensus, even if it meant compromising. One afternoon, he asked about her late husband, and Lily found herself sharing memories of simpler days. Felix listened without interrupting, a soft empathy in his eyes. After that conversation, Lily sensed an unspoken bond. Two people determined to heal heartbreak through purposeful work. It was near the end of that month when a new challenge arose. The local fishing collective discovered a contaminant in the river, likely debris from upriver industries. Fish stocks were threatened, and the timing couldn't be worse, with so many livelihoods already shaken by the flood. News spread quickly, and fishermen demanded urgent action. Lily and Felix's team convened an emergency meeting. Worried families filled the community hall, voicing fears that the tainted water might ruin the next spawn cycle. The agronomist pointed out that some farmland irrigation came from that same river, raising broader concerns about crop safety. Standing up front, Lily took a deep breath. "We're aware of the contamination," she said, scanning anxious faces. "Felix's foundation is bringing in experts to test the water and identify the pollutants. We won't let this go unchecked." A fisherman shot back, "Testing doesn't pay my bills, ma'am. I can't sell fish that folks believe are poisoned." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Lily's pulse quickened. She glanced at Felix, who stepped forward calmly. "We'll fund temporary income support for the fishing families," he announced. "We'll also bankroll a thorough cleanup if needed. But we must confirm exactly what's in that water." People looked uncertain. Then Lily added, "We'll provide real updates every 48 hours in writing, so no rumor goes unanswered." The fisherman's scowl lessened. He gave a gruff nod. With that uneasy truce, the crowd dispersed. Over the following week, scientists arrived, collecting samples at multiple points. Lily accompanied them, boots sinking in marshy ground while they tested for heavy metals or industrial runoff. The experts discovered traces of chemicals from an upstream plant that had improperly disposed of waste after the flood. The local press latched on, demanding accountability from that company. In parallel, Felix's legal advisors threatened lawsuits if the company didn't cooperate with cleanup. For many in Clearwater Bay, it was the first time they'd felt they had the upper hand against a corporate polluter. Lily saw hope sparking anew, yet the fight was draining. Some nights, Lily lay awake, worried that these problems would pile up faster than solutions could be found. She dreaded letting people down. Sometimes she'd wander her fields under the moonlight, running a hand over young sprouts just beginning to push through the soil. She remembered how she'd risked everything to feed the stranded villagers, and that memory steeled her nerves. Doing the right thing could be terrifying, but it was still right. One afternoon, after a tense round of negotiations over the cleanup timeline, Lily found Felix pacing near the library. His usual composure looked shaken. "They're stalling," he muttered, referring to the polluting company. "They claim they can't confirm liability so soon." He paused, gazing at her with tired eyes. "I didn't want to drag you into a legal battle. I meant to rebuild farmland, not wage war on industrial negligence." Lily inhaled the crisp air. "We can't pick our battles once we're in them," she responded quietly. "The fishermen and farmers need us to fight." Her words seemed to calm him. He nodded, his shoulders dropping. "I'm not quitting," he said. "Just had to vent." They left it there, each resuming their responsibilities. That same evening, Lily got a call from Commissioner Howe. He wanted her to speak at a county event about the progress. Lily nearly declined. Public speaking made her jittery, but realized her presence might sway further support. So, on a Saturday afternoon, she stood before a modest crowd in the county seat, wearing a floral blouse and holding trembling index cards. She spoke about the seeds now in the ground, the new irrigation lines, and the planned silo upgrades. Then she addressed the contamination crisis, praising those who had demanded justice. By the time she finished, applause echoed through the small auditorium. Lily felt relief wash over her. Outside, a local reporter asked for a comment. Lily mustered a confident line about unity. Only after climbing back into her truck did she finally let out a shaky breath. Days stretched into another month. The fields grew greener, morale lifted, and some fishers reported slight rebounds in their catches after installing protective measures. The polluting company gave in to pressure, starting an official cleanup. During a raucous community gathering, Lily announced the first wave of produce shipments had been approved. People clapped and cheered, hugging one another at the good news. She caught Felix's eye from across the room, and he smiled. For once, everyone seemed to breathe easier. They'd faced not just floods, but also pollution, bureaucracy, and mistrust. And yet, so far, they were emerging stronger. In the midst of this progress, Lily began noticing subtle shifts in her personal life, too. She realized she was checking her phone, hoping for updates from Felix, not solely about official matters. They spent more time alone, reviewing reports in her kitchen or strolling along the farmland. One evening, as they examined newly repaired fences, Lily found him lingering near her well. The sun was setting, casting orange light across the rows. Felix turned toward her, something unspoken in his eyes. She felt her heart pound, a sudden awareness that their partnership might be more than philanthropic. Her mind flashed to her husband. Guilt mingled with gratitude. It was the first time in years she'd felt the spark of attraction. She pushed the thought away, reminding herself that the community still needed her full focus. Meanwhile, Felix never made an overt hint, but sometimes his fingertips brushed hers in passing, sending an electric jolt through her. On occasion, they'd laugh over a meal, exchanging stories about childhood mischief. Yet they both acted as though a line existed, not to be crossed. Perhaps fear held them back, fear of mixing personal feelings with a project so vital to everyone else. Then, in late summer, while hosting a meeting about distribution channels, Lily got word that heavy storms were forecast. All the local radio stations buzzed with warnings. Clearwater Bay braced for potential flash floods. Anxiety gripped those who had only recently recovered from the previous disaster. Lily and Felix swiftly mobilized resources: extra sandbags, preemptive fortifications around low-lying areas, improved drainage where possible. The mood in town turned tense. Some businesses closed early, uncertain if they'd face another deluge. On the eve of the storm's landfall, Lily was at her farmhouse, nailing boards over vulnerable windows. She nearly toppled off a ladder, but strong hands caught her from behind. Heart racing, she turned to see Felix, hair damp from drizzle. "Figured you could use help," he said, retrieving an extra hammer. Together they worked in gathering gloom, thunder rumbling in the distance. At last, Lily gestured for him to come inside. The wind rattled the trees, and droplets speckled the porch. In her small kitchen, Lily brewed tea. They sipped quietly, the hush between them thick with unspoken concerns. Outside, the first streaks of lightning lit the sky. Felix ran a hand through his hair, exhaling. "We've done all we can," he said. "Now we wait." Lily nodded. She recalled nights like this with her husband, how they'd talk quietly through storms. She blinked, swallowing the ache in her chest. Felix seemed to sense her sadness. He touched her shoulder gently. "You've been so strong," he murmured. "But you don't have to carry everything alone." Something in his voice broke her composure. Tears she'd held back poured out. Grief for her husband, for the battered town, for the weight of leadership. Felix set his mug aside, folded her into his arms. She let herself cry against his chest, feeling a mix of longing and relief. Then she pulled back, wiping her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. He shook his head. "Never apologize for feeling." For a moment they simply looked at each other, hearts pounding in the candle-lit room. Then Lily inhaled, stepping away. "We should check the weather updates. The radio said the storm will hit by midnight." Felix nodded. He didn't push the moment further, and Lily was grateful. She needed time to process her tangled emotions. They spent the rest of the night monitoring the wind and scanning official advisories. Fortunately, the storm veered north. By dawn, only minor flooding touched the outskirts. Everyone breathed a collective sigh of relief. Lily accompanied Felix to the harbor, where his staff were assessing damage near the docks. As they parted, he placed a hand lightly on hers. "I'm glad you're safe," he said softly. Lily managed a faint smile. "Me too." Then she turned, heading toward the battered farmland to verify everything was intact. For the next few days, the storm's near miss gave the community a renewed sense of gratitude. Fields remained green, and the new drainage measures had prevented the worst. Lily poured herself into finalizing harvest logistics. She oversaw volunteer days to help smaller farms gather produce. Children roamed fields, eyes bright with the novelty of working side by side with grown-ups. The sense of unity reminded Lily why she'd embraced Felix's offer in the first place. Despite the busyness, Lily couldn't ignore the subtle but growing closeness between her and Felix. She occasionally caught him watching her across crowded rooms, concern and admiration blended in his gaze. Each time a flutter swirled in her chest. She tried to keep it hidden, uncertain if her heart could risk love again. Yet she couldn't pretend the feeling wasn't there. On an afternoon thick with summer heat, Lily found a small package on her porch, a card addressed in Felix's neat handwriting. Inside was a simple pair of gardening gloves, embroidered with small silver thread forming the initials LG for Lily Goodwin. The note read, "For all the crops you'll continue to grow. Thank you for believing. F." She clutched the gloves against her heart, eyes stinging with tears she didn't fully understand. That evening, she wore them while weeding, each tug at the earth reminding her that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as alone as she once feared. Over the next few weeks, the farmland around Clearwater Bay began showing its first signs of true recovery. Green shoots sprang up where waterlogged soil had once been. A hush of gratitude spread among neighbors as they walked row by row, marveling at seedlings that promised a renewed harvest. Lily spent early mornings trudging between her fields, double-checking irrigation lines, adjusting sprinklers, and keeping track of every developing leaf. Each time she passed another farmer's plot, she greeted them with a friendly wave. Many now offered her a smile in return, a far cry from the guarded nods of earlier months. She took meticulous notes, jotting down observations in a sturdy notebook. Whenever she spotted a diseased patch or a pest, she reported it to the Foundation's agronomist, who suggested natural pest deterrents and improved methods for weed control. Lily's confidence grew as she witnessed how swiftly small tweaks could benefit entire acreages. Though every day felt like a marathon of errands, picking up spare parts, organizing volunteer schedules, and hosting planning sessions, she found satisfaction in the progress unfolding around her. One quiet afternoon, while Lily was repairing a broken gate hinge near her barn, the sound of an approaching vehicle caused her to glance over. Another black SUV rolled up the driveway, but this time it wasn't part of Felix's entourage. Out stepped a smartly dressed woman with pin-straight hair and a crisp blazer. Lily set down her tools, bracing for whatever new development this visitor might bring. "Ms. Goodwin?" the woman called, stepping forward. "My name's Charlotte Glenn. I'm a producer with a national news network. We'd like to feature you in Clearwater Bay in a segment about rural revitalization." Lily blinked, momentarily taken aback. Television crews had come in the immediate aftermath of the flood, but that coverage had been fleeting. "Why now?" Lily asked, squinting in the midday sun. Charlotte offered a practiced smile. "Your town's transformation is remarkable. Outside investment, community-driven leadership, and your personal story, well, it's the kind of narrative people find inspiring." She held out a business card. "We'd love an interview, plus footage around the farmland." Lily felt a twist of nerves. She didn't relish publicity. Nonetheless, shining a broader spotlight on their progress could attract further resources, maybe even help fishing families who still wrestled with uncertain catches. She asked for time to consider. That evening, she convened with Felix and the commissioners. They agreed that public goodwill might fortify their efforts. Over the phone, Lily told Charlotte they would proceed with caution. The reporter seemed thrilled. A week later, the news crew arrived in a white van full of equipment. Charlotte led 2 cameramen around, capturing shots of farm rows and newly repaired roads. She interviewed local families who praised the partnership between Lily and the foundation. Though some remain unconvinced about big media, Lily tried to keep everything transparent, inviting reporters to see both successes and remaining struggles. At midday, Charlotte set up a formal interview under an old oak near Lily's fields. Lily wore a plain blouse, ignoring the crew's suggestion that she dress more fashionably. "I'm a farmer," she said firmly. "That's who people need to see." Under the dappled shade, Charlotte asked Lily about her background, the floods, and how Felix's involvement changed everything. Lily answered candidly, praising the dedication of her neighbors as much as the new funding. Halfway through, Charlotte introduced a more personal angle, pressing about Lily's life since losing her husband. Lily swallowed, remembering that raw heartbreak. She conceded that focusing on service helped mend her grief. "I guess giving my harvest was how I kept his spirit alive," she said softly, glancing at the neat rows of crops beyond. The camera caught her expression of quiet resolve. Once the interview wrapped, Charlotte asked whether they could film at the harbor, including the impressive yacht. Lily phoned Felix. He agreed to show them around, though he rarely liked being in front of a camera himself. When Lily and the crew arrived at the pier, they found Felix waiting in a simple button-down shirt, no tie in sight. He offered a polite greeting, leading them aboard for a quick tour. The camera panned over the polished railings and expansive deck, contrasting the vessel's grandeur with the humble town visible beyond. Charlotte pressed him about why a billionaire would care about a struggling region. Felix's gaze flicked to Lily before he replied that his mother's rural roots shaped his perspective. "All I want," he said, "is to give people hope where it once felt lost." The sincerity of his words caught even the film crew off guard. The news segment aired 2 weeks later, and the response was immediate. Donations trickled into the local relief fund, and philanthropic organizations reached out, wanting to replicate the model. Lily fielded calls from out-of-state farmers who faced similar challenges, each asking how they managed to build trust with a major benefactor. On the streets, strangers occasionally approached Lily, praising her for representing small communities with dignity. While the recognition felt surreal, she found comfort in how many new resources it brought. The library quickly became a hub for inquiries, forcing Commissioner Howe to assign volunteers just to handle the volume. On a breezy afternoon, Lily was in her living room, sorting through letters from potential partners who had been inspired by the television piece, when she heard a soft knock at the door. Peeking out the window, she saw Felix standing there, holding a small woven basket. She opened the door curiously. "Everything all right?" she asked. He stepped in, offering a warm grin. "I wanted to give you these," he said, lifting the cloth that covered the basket to reveal fresh vegetables from his newly started garden plot on a small leased section of farmland. "They're not as perfect as yours, but I've been experimenting." Lily's eyes sparkled. "You're actually gardening?" she teased. He shrugged, a faint blush coloring his cheeks. I figured I should learn firsthand what we're all working for. She invited him to stay for supper. Over a simple stew made from his vegetables and some of her own, they talked about expansions to the cooperative. The atmosphere felt increasingly personal, each moment laced with warmth. The dinner ended on the porch, where they sipped iced tea beneath a sunset sky. Lily let her guard down enough to share a funny story about her husband's fondness for building odd contraptions around the farm. Felix laughed, then went quiet. "Thank you for telling me that," he said softly. A comfortable silence settled, and Lily realized how natural it felt to have him there. But later that night, as Felix departed and Lily prepared for bed, an unease crept into her thoughts. The closeness between them was undeniable, yet so were the complexities. She could sense her feelings growing stronger, but mixing romance with such a significant community project felt perilous. In her late husband's absence, she'd never believed she would find someone else who understood her heart. Now, there was Felix, stepping in at a time of transformation. She prayed for clarity, telling herself not to let her personal yearnings overshadow her responsibilities. Over the next few days, Lily immersed herself in finalizing a major distribution effort. The orchard owners had teamed up with local dairy farmers to create specialty products, hoping to launch a traveling market stand. Felix's staff helped secure permits in nearby towns, ensuring farmers could sell produce more widely. On the morning they loaded the first trucks, Lily stood in a swirl of activity, double-checking crates of apples, cheeses, and cornmeal. As the trucks rumbled away, she felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. The new unity in Clearwater Bay marked a victory no storm or skepticism could take away. That evening, Lily rode her pickup to a vantage point overlooking the farmland. From there, she saw lights gleaming in distant fields where farmers were working late. She recalled the devastation of those floods and the despair that had weighed on everyone's shoulders. Now the land itself seemed to glow with renewed vigor. A soft voice behind her made her start. She turned to see Felix, who had quietly parked his own car and climbed the hill. "I thought I might find you here," he said gently. "I needed to see the progress under the night sky." They stood side by side, letting the stillness envelop them. Lily found her heart beating faster. The hush of stars, the faint smell of damp earth, and the memory of how far they'd come all blended into a heady mix. She looked at him, noticing how fatigue lined his face, yet there was warmth in his eyes. Slowly, as though pulled by an unspoken force, they both leaned in. Their lips brushed in a tender, uncertain kiss. Lily felt her breath catch. A flurry of conflicting emotions tumbled through her, but in that silent moment, it felt right. An affirmation of shared effort and mutual care. When they pulled back, Lily tried to steady her breathing. Felix gazed at her with an unspoken question. Gently, she pressed a hand to his cheek. "I don't know what happens next," she whispered. "I don't want to risk all we've built." He nodded, speaking quietly. "We'll be careful, I promise. The town comes first." She managed a small smile, blinking back tears. "Thank you," she said, hardly trusting her voice. With that, they simply stood together, gazing across the farmland that had seen heartbreak, rebirth, and now the first traces of unexpected love. At sunrise the next day, Lily returned to her chores with a mixture of excitement and trepidation swirling in her chest. She felt alive in a way she hadn't in years, yet she also carried the weight of her community's fragile trust. Steering her old tractor across the field, she replayed the night's events in her mind, torn between joy and worry. But the farmland glistened under golden light, and birds called overhead, reminding her that life often found its own ways to blossom, even in uncertain terrain. As she turned soil for new seeds, Lily resolved to keep forging ahead, one careful step at a time, uncertain yet hopeful for the harvest of tomorrow. At first light, Lily moved through her morning chores with a quiet sense of anticipation. She kept recalling the gentle pressure of Felix's kiss, the way it had stolen her breath and, for one exquisite moment, made her feel undeniably alive. But just as the memory stirred warmth in her chest, thoughts of all the potential complications returned. She tried to push them aside, focusing on the tasks at hand, checking irrigation ditches, scooping feed for the goats, and scanning the fields for any signs of blight. While sunrise painted the sky in pastel colors, she reminded herself of her promises to her late husband, to the struggling town, and now, perhaps, to the fragile connection blossoming between her and Felix. By mid-morning, she climbed into her pickup to head into Clearwater Bay for a meeting about the traveling market stands. Driving along the dusty road, she paused at an intersection when she spotted a group of neighbors talking by the side of a wheat field. Curiosity piqued. She pulled over. The men and women clustered there seemed agitated, gesturing at a sagging barbed wire fence. One farmer, with worry etched across his features, explained that a wandering group of outsiders had been snooping around farmland up north, claiming they wanted to buy parcels cheap. Rumors hinted these strangers had deep pockets and no interest in actually farming. Lily felt a jolt of concern. She recalled how, after the floods, land values had plummeted in certain spots. If speculators started snapping up acreage, the community's recovery might be threatened before it fully took root. Shaking off a fresh wave of anxiety, Lily promised to bring up the matter with the Foundation's legal advisor. She told the group to stay vigilant and not to sign anything without thorough review. The farmers thanked her, though suspicion still hung in the air. Lily understood their fear. The region had endured crisis after crisis, and the last thing anyone wanted was for farmland to become a bargaining chip in some outside deal. She offered to organize a town forum on property rights, urging them to alert neighbors. As she continued on her way, she rehearsed how she might broach the subject with Felix. The thought of seeing him again sent a flutter through her stomach, but she pushed it aside. There was work to do. At the old postmaster's building, she joined a circle of local volunteers preparing for the traveling stands. Stacks of flyers lay on a table, each advertising the region's fresh produce, dairy goods, and orchard offerings. A stocky orchard owner named Ben pointed out which counties might welcome a mobile farm market. Another volunteer discussed scheduling so the stands could rotate among different towns on successive weekends. Amid the bustling talk, Lily forced herself to concentrate. She scribbled notes, making sure no detail was overlooked. Midway through, Felix slipped in quietly, nodding greetings to everyone. Though he wore a casual shirt and jeans, Lily's pulse kicked up when their eyes met. They kept their distance in the crowd, but the slightest smile passed between them. After the meeting ended, folks filed out, leaving Lily and Felix near the dusty old window. She mentioned the rumored speculators. His expression hardened. "I'll have my legal team look into it at once," he said, concern evident in his voice. "We don't want outside buyers swooping in to undermine everything." She thanked him, aware of how easily he switched from warmth to business-like focus. They headed outside together, the late morning sun heating the pavement. Felix asked if she had time to walk to the library so they could speak in private about the farmland concerns. Lily agreed, a faint tension in her chest at the prospect of being alone with him again. As they strolled down Main Street, townspeople waved. A grandmother rocking on her porch called out, "You all keep up the good fight." Lily smiled in return, grateful for the show of support. At the library, they found a quiet corner among the shelves. Felix's expression turned earnest. "I've had my eye on a couple of developments in other states," he said. "When outside investors arrive, they sometimes wait for farmland prices to drop further before they pounce. Our best defense might be to set up a local land trust that can buy parcels at fair prices and lease them back to farmers. That way no single speculator can take over." Lily's eyes widened. She'd heard of land trusts, but never imagined one for their county. Could we really pull that off? She asked in a hushed tone. Felix nodded, explaining that his foundation could seed the fund. But, he added, we'd need community agreement and a proper board to manage it. Otherwise, it looks like just another wealthy meddler imposing solutions. Lily exhaled, glimpsing the intricacy of solutions meant to protect farmland. She recalled the dryness of her throat during big meetings, how easily people could doubt new proposals. Yet she also saw how crucial it might be. After they hashed out preliminary ideas, Lily realized they were leaning closer than intended, voices low amid the hush of the library. She felt the warmth of his breath, the memory of their shared kiss flickering in her mind. Clearing her throat, she glanced around, conscious that staff might notice their closeness. Felix, too, straightened, returning his tone to business. "We can talk more at tonight's co-op review," he said softly. She nodded, stepping back. That evening, Lily drove out to the wide community barn on the outskirts of town. The co-op was holding a final review of newly installed storage facilities, checking that each farmer's share was correctly allotted. Outside the barn, a row of pickups and battered sedans filled the gravel lot. She spotted Felix's car, along with an official county vehicle. The air smelled of hay and approaching rain. Inside, the wide wooden space was lit by hanging lamps, and the foundation's logistics expert explained how to track each bin's contents. About 24 farmers stood by, some smiling, some frowning at spreadsheets. Lily chatted with the orchard owners, ensuring orchard fruit had proper refrigeration. She glimpsed Felix consulting quietly with Commissioner Howe at a side table, evidently discussing land trusts. As the meeting ended, a new wave of satisfaction washed over Lily. The community barn, once used only for occasional square dances, now bustled with forward-thinking activity. People parted in pairs or small groups, each resolved to make the co-op thrive. Lily lingered near the big doors, waiting for the last farmers to exit. When Felix finished speaking with the commissioner, he approached wearing a tired grin. "Quite a day," he remarked. Lily nodded, stepping outside with him. The sky had darkened, and a scattering of stars peeked through drifting clouds. They walked side by side through the gravel lot. Nobody else remained to see them slip behind the barn, where the gentle whir of cicadas filled the night air. Leaning against the barn's wooden wall, Lily confessed her worries about balancing personal life with community obligations. She admitted that her growing feelings for him both excited and terrified her. Felix listened attentively, his hand reaching for hers. "I know it's complicated," he said quietly, "but I'm here, and I don't want to hide our connection forever. We just need to handle it with care." Lily swallowed, recalling how heartbreak had once taught her to be cautious. But she couldn't deny the sense of belonging she felt in Felix's presence. She took a measured breath. "If we move forward, we do it slowly," she said. "The town is still healing. They can't see us as a distraction or a conflict of interest." Felix stroked her knuckles. "Agreed," he murmured. Their second kiss that night was gentle, marked by the hush of mutual understanding rather than reckless abandon. Lily felt a surge of resolve. Perhaps she could build a new life that honored the past without being chained to it. The next morning, Lily rose before dawn, still tingling with the memory of that shared moment behind the barn. With the days growing longer, harvest loomed. She spent hours in her fields, verifying that the cooperative arrangement would indeed handle the extra yields. The orchard owners reported healthy fruit, the vegetable plots thrived, and the new drainage lines had prevented waterlogging. Each evening, Lily fielded calls from out-of-town buyers interested in produce from the rejuvenated farmland. Weeks earlier, she'd have dreaded such conversations, but now she navigated them with determination, securing fair prices for everyone involved. Meanwhile, the subject of those unknown land speculators lingered. Felix's legal team discovered that a loosely organized group of private investors had scouted properties across the county. While no formal offers appeared yet, the sense of potential threat remained. In response, the commissioners scheduled an emergency public forum to discuss the proposed land trust. Flyers went up around town, urging attendance. Lily steeled herself for more speeches, knowing how quickly suspicion could flare. The night of the forum arrived, and the school gymnasium teemed with people. Some wore anxious faces, others expectant ones. Lily, Felix, Commissioner Howe, and a visiting legal expert sat at a long table up front. The chairs beneath the fluorescent lights squeaked as townspeople shifted restlessly. Lily took the microphone. Even though her heart pounded, she spoke clearly about how the trust would work, how farmland would remain under local stewardship, and why it could protect them from outsiders. Felix elaborated on financing options, emphasizing the community would steer decisions. Questions flew. Would taxes rise? Were owners being forced to sell? Lily explained it was purely voluntary, a safety net if anyone needed to offload land without letting outsiders gain control. The back and forth grew heated at times, but calmer voices gradually prevailed. By the forum's close, a show of hands indicated broad support to set up a provisional board to explore the trust's details. Lily felt relief course through her. If the plan succeeded, they could shield the region from predatory buyers. Yet it meant more work, more negotiations. When the crowd dispersed, Lily realized how exhausted she was. Felix caught her elbow gently. "You did great," he whispered. She nodded, letting out a shaky exhale. Around them, half the lights in the gym clicked off. People streamed toward the exit, their conversations subdued and thoughtful. Lily spotted some of the earlier doubters walking away in quiet discussion, perhaps reassessing their stance. She hoped they could see that this path offered genuine protection. Outside, a warm breeze brushed her cheeks. As she passed the darkened bleachers, Lily squeezed Felix's hand once quickly, before letting go, mindful that they still had to pace themselves. That night, alone in her bedroom, Lily couldn't sleep. Staring at the moonlit ceiling, she felt pride at how far the community had come, from flood-ravaged desperation to forging new solutions. She also felt the flicker of her personal happiness brightening each day. Yet lingering in the back of her mind was a persistent caution, the knowledge that any misstep now could fracture the delicate unity Clearwater Bay had managed to rebuild. Determined to keep her promises, to her neighbors, to Felix, and to herself, she closed her eyes, willing her racing thoughts to settle. Dawn brought no rest. Lily launched into another cycle of farm duties, taking a mental tally of tasks she'd face, finalizing orchard shipment contracts, coordinating an equipment repair workshop, drafting notes for the Provisional Land Trust Board, and checking in on a friend's flooded basement that still needed new drywall. By mid-afternoon, she was sore and fatigued. Yet each moment of progress propelled her forward. As the sun dipped low, Lily stood at the edge of her fields, scanning the horizon. The corn stalks swayed in a gentle wind, hinting at a promising harvest to come. She touched one leaf and felt an echo of her own resilience. A small voice inside whispered that just as these plants had survived storms and floods, so too could she nurture a new chapter for herself and for Clearwater Bay. Lily's first sign of trouble came late on a Tuesday, just as she was tidying up the community barn after a seminar on equipment safety. She'd lingered to stack chairs, noticing one last small group huddled near the far wall. The older man, Gerald Peters, looked deeply worried, and beside him stood a woman Lily didn't recognize. Lily approached, overhearing the murmur of tense conversation. "They tried to make me sign something I didn't understand," Gerald was saying, voice trembling. "Said they could pay cash on the spot." He caught sight of Lily and beckoned her closer. "This here is Carla Mason," Gerald explained, gesturing at the woman. She wore jeans, scuffed boots, and a guarded expression. "She's been traveling with a couple of fellows claiming they've got the best farmland deals around. She says something doesn't smell right." Carla dipped her head in a subdued greeting, cheeks flushed. Lily set the folded chairs aside and asked calmly what had happened. Carla hesitated, then described a slick-talking man who'd shown up at her trailer park, promising quick money if she could help locate landowners willing to sell. In return, Carla would get a finder's fee for each property. At first, it sounded like a simple arrangement, but Carla soon realized these so-called buyers had no interest in local well-being. They kept bragging about turning farmland into luxury estates, Carla said softly, eyes lowered. Said as soon as the region gets enough improvements, property values will soar. Then the real profits roll in. Lily's stomach nodded. The scenario they'd feared was taking shape. Speculators roving around, targeting vulnerable folks. Gerald confirmed that earlier that day, a stranger had shown up at his door, offering cash for his fields that sat near a newly drained stretch of land. He said if I signed right away, I'd get $10,000 more, Gerald muttered, shaking his head. I told him to get off my porch. Carla looked relieved that she wasn't the only one disturbed by these tactics. Lily sighed heavily. I'll bring this to the commissioners and Felix's people first thing tomorrow, she promised. No one should sign anything without a thorough review. That night, Lily barely slept, her mind spinning with images of farmland carved up into gaudy developments. She rose before dawn, performed her chores with numb efficiency, and drove straight to the Provisional Land Trust office. The small space, once used for storing library overflow, now served as a hub for coordination. Inside, Felix's legal advisor was already at a desk, sorting documents. Lily relayed what Gerald and Carla had reported. The lawyer frowned, jotting notes. We suspected they'd ramp up pressure, she said. We need to accelerate forming the trust so owners have a safe place to turn. Lily's pulse quickened. Let's do it. Enough waiting. She resolved to call an emergency meeting that evening. As Lily hurried off to gather community leaders, she spotted Felix in the hallway. His gentle smile turned to concern when she explained the new developments. I'll call in some additional resources, he said. If these buyers are operating in bad faith, we can file complaints, but we need proof. Carla's testimony could help. Lily agreed. She thanked him, noticing how his hand lingered lightly on her elbow as she turned to go. In that brief touch lay a promise of solidarity, and something more, unspoken but powerful. By mid-afternoon, word spread that outsiders were pressing landowners with pushy sales pitches, sometimes hinting that the newly minted farmland improvements made the region prime for high-end projects. Tensions mounted. A few residents approached Lily, confused by contradictory claims. One man said the co-op was just an interim measure, a worried widow recounted. He insisted farmland values were about to skyrocket, so I should cash in now or miss out. Lily felt frustration rise. They'd worked so hard to rebuild trust, only to face a new wave of manipulation. Still, she refused to let fear derail what they'd achieved. That evening, the emergency meeting took place at the school auditorium. A throng of farmers, orchard owners, and fishermen arrived, some sporting anxious frowns. Commissioner Howe led the session, flanked by Felix's legal advisors and Lily in the front row. The crowd's murmurs filled the air, creating a tense undercurrent. Carla Mason stood up to describe her experience, apologizing for having initially cooperated. They made it sound so easy, she said, voice trembling. I didn't realize how many people might get hurt. Several heads nodded sympathetically. Felix's lawyer explained the best ways to spot real estate scams, emphasizing that no one should sign a single document until it was reviewed. Commissioner Howe declared that the county was fast-tracking the official establishment of the land trust. Lily took the mic, scanning the audience. We're stronger together, she said. If someone waves quick cash in your face, ask yourself who profits long-term. The flood nearly wiped us out. Now that we're recovering, we can't let unscrupulous investors scoop up our land. She felt a surge of energy at the crowd's applause, glimpsing how her words gave them renewed resolve. With the meeting adjourned, Lily stayed behind as people filed out, forging new commitments not to sell without caution. She patted Carla's shoulder reassuringly, then joined Felix near the auditorium doors. "We'll need public workshops on land rights," she murmured. "I can't believe how suddenly this escalated." He agreed, gently placing a hand on her back as they walked out. The simple warmth of that gesture filled Lily with reassurance, even as the swirling problems weighed heavily on her mind. Days turned into a blur of activity. The commissioners, working with Felix's staff, arranged informational sessions, distributed flyers warning about predatory practices, and encouraged landowners to register interest in the trust. Lily spent her mornings in the fields, her afternoons chairing town forums, and her evenings drafting guidelines. The new tension in the region tested everyone's patience, but it also pushed them to collaborate more closely. Each time a rumor surfaced that a farmland owner might be tempted by slick deals, Lily or another volunteer rushed over to clarify facts, always armed with brochures and a calm explanation. Meanwhile, Lily's personal connection with Felix continued to grow, though they remained discreet. They saw each other at planning sessions, exchanging meaningful glances. Sometimes, after a long day, they'd slip away to the diner on the edge of town for a late meal, tucked into a corner booth. Over plates of comfort food, they'd talk candidly about their shared worries, the obstacles still in front of them, and the remarkable synergy that kept spurring them forward. One warm evening, Lily walked Felix through her fields, showing him how the new irrigation hoses had changed water flow. In the fading light, he leaned in and pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. She let herself savor the moment, relieved that amid the chaos, this tiny kernel of affection could bloom. However, not everyone failed to notice their closeness. One afternoon, Lily overheard two farmers whispering about how the widow Goodwin seemed mighty cozy with the billionaire behind the revival. Their tone was guarded, suggesting potential gossip. Lily's cheeks flamed. She'd never wanted special treatment or scandalous rumors that might undercut the serious work they were doing. She confronted them gently, explaining that she and Felix shared a partnership dedicated to the community's benefit. Whether or not they believed her, they at least nodded respectfully. Yet Lily left that conversation feeling uneasy, remembering how quickly good deeds could be overshadowed by idle talk. Amid all this, the farmland remained on the brink of a major harvest. Rows of corn, wheat, and vegetables flourished, thanks to the Foundation's aid and the townspeople's renewed dedication. Lily coordinated a volunteer system for harvest support, especially for elderly farmers who needed extra hands. The orchard owners predicted a banner apple season, and the traveling market stands booked additional stops in neighboring towns. Optimism coursed through the region, tempered by vigilance against the looming threat of predatory buyers. One late afternoon, as Lily was finishing a co-op inspection, a well-dressed man approached her. He introduced himself as Gavin Bright, representing a development consortium. His polite smile didn't reach his eyes. He launched into a pitch about future forward living spaces that could elevate the county's profile. Lily cut him short, politely but firmly. "We're not interested in turning farmland into luxury subdivisions. We need it to produce food and sustain livelihoods." Gavin's veneer of politeness cracked for an instant. He offered a business card saying, "When you change your mind, I'll be around." Lily threw the card away once he left, unsettled by his glib arrogance. That evening, she recounted the incident to Felix, who shook his head gravely. "We'll prepare for a legal showdown if necessary," he said. "If they try to manipulate folks into selling, we'll fight it." Lily nodded, steel in her gaze. She recalled how the floods had taught her that unity was stronger than any single crisis. This was just another storm, a subtler one, but no less dangerous. She prayed that the town's solidarity would hold. Early the next morning, Lily checked on an elderly neighbor who reported another unexpected visitor waving a check. The woman refused, but her nerves were rattled. Lily consoled her, suggesting she sign up for the land trust's protective options. Driving away, Lily noticed that rumors of large sums now swirled. The day felt heavier, as though the entire community braced for confrontation. She forced herself to remain calm. Setting up the trust's board might be the final bulwark they needed. They were very close to finalizing the paperwork. Late that afternoon, Commissioner Howe called Lily to say the papers would be ready by the week's end. "If all goes well," he said, voice crackling over the phone line, "we'll have a formal entity with local oversight." Lily exhaled relief, grateful they'd acted swiftly. Yet she also realized that until the ink dried, any farmland sale could slip through their fingers. She hurriedly arranged a final planning session for the next evening, inviting Felix and the commissioners to finalize details. She prayed they could pull everything together before more unscrupulous visitors arrived with enticing offers. As dusk fell, Lily toured her fields once more. Stalks of corn whispered in the breeze, glowing gold in the last of the sunlight. Despite her weariness, she felt a fierce pride. The land had endured floods and fear. Now it was thriving. She wondered how her husband might view all this, his widow at the center of a grand effort, forging alliances, fighting to keep farmland safe. She hoped he'd be proud. Standing there, she gathered her courage for the battles still looming. The next few days might determine whether Clearwater Bay remained a haven of honest labor or became a playground for opportunists. Clutching a stalk of corn between her fingers, she breathed in the scent of damp earth and resolved once again to protect the community and the new life that had begun to take root in her own heart. The morning broke with a tense energy across the farmland. Lily woke to messages from neighbors anxious about finalizing the land trust. She gulped coffee while reviewing tasks, verifying bylaws, scheduling the emergency meeting for signatures, and reassuring the entire town. After feeding her goats, she noticed one looking listless. She paused to check its eyes and temperature, reminded that despite outside tensions, her animals needed steady care. Satisfied it was just fatigued, she headed to her truck and drove down the gravel lane toward the provisional office. Every bump reminded her they were almost at the finish line. Once the trust was official, predatory buyers would have fewer ways to exploit anyone. Yet a tight knot in her stomach warned that last-minute obstacles might still appear. She drove determined. At the office, she found Commissioner Howe already hunched over documents. Felix's legal advisor, Megan, was there too, tapping a pen against a battered folder labeled Land Trust Bylaws. They greeted Lily with relieved smiles, but tension underlined every gesture. Megan explained that they'd uncovered evidence of new attempts to pressure elderly farmers into signing. One widow reported a man who hovered by her mailbox, insisting she was about to lose everything if she didn't sell fast. Lily's heart sank at the cruelty. "We'll finalize these bylaws today," Commissioner Howe said firmly, sliding a pen across the table. "The sooner we lock in this trust, the better." Lily nodded. She could sense that with each passing hour the stakes climbed higher, yet they had no choice but to push forward together. Lily spent the next few hours combing through each clause of the proposed trust. She double-checked language guaranteeing local governance, ensuring that any land donated or sold to the trust remained dedicated to agricultural use. Her eyes burned from reading fine print, but she refused to skim. If they missed even a minor loophole, speculators could exploit it. By noon, they'd integrated final edits. Felix arrived with lunch, sandwiches, and cold iced tea, and they all ate amid scattered documents. Commissioner Howe joked that they might as well pitch tents inside this old office. Lily mustered a chuckle. Once lunch ended, the group reconvened around a battered wooden table, pens in hand, to finalize each article. A hush settled. This was the moment they'd worked toward, a safeguard for farmland and livelihood. Commissioner Howe cleared his throat, guiding them through final steps. Megan motioned for Lily to sign first. She signed her name, each pen stroke echoing her hopes for protecting neighbors from greedy hands. Felix leaned in next, affixing his signature on behalf of his foundation. Then Howe and 2 more local representatives added their names. The small group exchanged glances of shared triumph. "We'll file this immediately," Megan said, gathering the pages. Lily exhaled, tightness unraveling in her chest. For months they'd battled floods, pollution, and predatory deals. Now, with these signatures, the land trust stood as a fortress for anyone needing refuge. Outside, Lily stared at the sky, letting a tremor of relief wash over her. Even if more conflicts lay ahead, she felt a renewed sense of possibility. Word traveled fast that the trust was active. Townspeople stopped Lily on the street, expressing thanks or sharing relief. One elderly couple said it felt like a shield now stood between them and unscrupulous buyers. Even Carla Mason, who'd feared community backlash, found acceptance. She confessed to Lily she was trying to start fresh. Lily encouraged her to volunteer at the farmers' co-op, forging honest connections. Meanwhile, Felix announced a modest grant program so smaller plots could upgrade irrigation without fretting over immediate debt. The local newspaper ran a front-page story. Land Trust seals the deal. Clearwater Bay safeguards its future. Reading it, Lily smiled, hoping no new storms lay on the horizon. Yet the next evening, a series of unexpected phone calls tested her faith in their newfound stability. Lily had just finished dinner when her phone rang. Hank, a longtime neighbor, sounded frantic. He claimed 2 men in a black SUV had shown up at dusk, demanding to see property deeds. They hinted they could challenge the trust's legality if owners declined. Lily's pulse raced. She told Hank to stay calm and not to hand over any documents. Minutes later, Carla called, breathless, in distress. Lily jotted details, then phoned Commissioner Howe and Felix. Both promised to gather evidence for a formal complaint. The notion that these buyers would still harass folks after the trust's formation left Lily furious. She grabbed her keys, intending to drive out and check on Hank. But a thunderstorm broke, lashing the night with wind and rain, forcing her to wait until morning. Dawn arrived in a swirl of lingering clouds. Lily hurried to Hank's place, skirting fallen branches from the storm. She found him safe, but rattled. The black SUV left deep tire marks in his yard, tearing off as thunder rolled. Hank shook his head, showing Lily footprints near the porch, as if someone prowled around. Anger flared in Lily's chest. She snapped photos on her phone, vowing to pass them along to Felix's team. Returning to town, she learned Carla spotted the same vehicle speeding off near the Orchard Road that morning. Commissioner Howe convened a huddle at the office, urging everyone to remain on alert. "These folks might attempt intimidation," he said. Lily stood tall, refusing fear, still overshadowing their trust. They had laws, public support, and each other. By midday, Felix called Lily, voice taut. He'd learned from Megan that police were taking statements. A deputy planned to patrol remote roads to discourage prowlers. Lily felt both relieved and uneasy. Would official presence truly deter such brazen tactics? Still, she pressed on, overseeing repairs on a damaged bridge. The storm had loosened some boards, and farmers needed safe crossing for harvest. While volunteers hammered planks into place, Lily's phone buzzed nonstop. Texts reporting suspicious cars, anxious neighbors asking if the trust could revoke shady offers. Very overwhelmed, Lily paused to breathe. The land trust existed, yes, but implementing it under threat felt daunting. When she finally returned home, dusk already settling, she found Felix waiting by her porch. His somber expression told her their troubles were far from over. He explained that lawyers uncovered evidence connecting the pushy buyers to a larger development firm. "They're determined to flip farmland before the public realizes the trust protects everything," Felix said, arms folded. Lily felt anger surge. All their progress now threatened by corporate greed. She offered him sweet tea at her kitchen table, the tension thick. Felix admitted he worried about her safety. She insisted she'd manage, but the concern in his eyes softened her resolve. Exhaustion tugged at both of them, so she quietly asked him to stay for dinner. They ate simple leftovers, barely tasting the food as they brainstormed how best to protect the region. Before Felix left, he placed a hand on Lily's shoulder, promising that together they'd shield Clearwater Bay from any storm, natural or man-made. Sleep eluded Lily that night. She rose at dawn, determined to face whatever came next. The farmland beckoned with rows ready for harvesting, a testament to resilience. Yet behind that promise lurked the threat of shady developers. Lily visited the co-op warehouse, ensuring deliveries remained on schedule. She stopped by the new orchard stand, greeting families who'd come for apples. Everywhere she went, folks offered encouragement and thanks. Despite her exhaustion, Lily felt a spark of hope. Clearwater Bay had rallied through floods and pollution. Now it would stand against real estate vultures. In her truck on the ride home, she glanced at the wide fields bathed in morning light. A conviction settled inside her. The land belonged to those who nurtured it, and she would guard it with her heart. Lily woke to a new wave of tension rippling through Clearwater Bay. Though the land trust's formation had brought relief, rumors now spread about a brazen attempt by unnamed developers to file legal challenges against the trust. Several elders claimed they had received official-looking letters questioning whether farmland placed under trust might violate certain zoning laws. Lily spent the morning conferring with the county's legal team, who recommended calm vigilance. Standing behind them was Felix's foundation, ready to offer legal support if necessary. As Lily delivered flyers at the general store, she saw the anxiety etched on neighbors' faces. Despite the good harvest prospects, an undercurrent of fear persisted. A single misstep could unravel months of work. Clutching her coat against a brisk wind, she promised herself she would not let these threats overshadow the community's resilience. At midday, Lily joined a small group in front of the library, where Commissioner Howe addressed concerns about the rumored legal challenges. He held up a copy of one letter, pointing out the inaccuracies. Most claims were baseless scare tactics, meant to sow doubt. His calm explanation reassured some attendees, but Lily noticed a cluster of folks who remained unsmiling. They worried about hidden loopholes or judges who might side with big money. She stepped forward and reminded everyone of their right to stand as one. The land trust, she stressed, had been crafted with local input and official county support. While no lawsuit had yet materialized, she cautioned that preparation was key. The people dispersed, some less anxious, others still bracing themselves. In the days that followed, the farmland continued its march toward harvest. Rows of wheat shimmered in the sun, and orchard fruit swelled with promise. Lily organized volunteer squads to help older farmers manage the final push. Meanwhile, Felix's staff coordinated with the sheriff's department, urging them to keep an eye out for suspicious vehicles. A few reported sightings of the black SUV reappearing on back roads, though it seemed to vanish by the time anyone arrived. Through it all, Lily carried her notebook, logging every incident or rumor. At night, she scribbled updates by lantern light, heart fluttering at the possibility of confrontation. Yet each morning she rose again, determined to protect both her neighbors and the land they cherished. One warm afternoon, Lily invited Carla Mason to her farm. She showed Carla the goats, pointed out the revived patches of corn, and asked about her plans. Carla admitted she felt lost. Her old life had revolved around chasing quick money, never thinking about the broader consequences. Lily encouraged her to join the orchard group, explaining how honest work could restore self-worth. Carla's eyes brimmed with gratitude, a sign that maybe the community was strong enough to absorb those who once nearly caused its downfall. Before Carla left, Lily told her that redemption was possible if she stayed committed. Standing in the driveway, they shared a brief embrace. Lily watched Carla drive off, feeling a quiet hope that people could change if given a chance. The following morning, Lily got an urgent text from Hank. The black SUV had appeared again on the outskirts, near a property that recently signed over its development rights to the trust. Racing there in her pickup, Lily arrived to see two strangers in pressed suits confronting an elderly couple. Anger surged when she heard them spewing threats, claiming the couple had no authority to place land under trust. Lily jumped out, demanding they leave. One man glowered, stepping forward with a sneer, but a county deputy, alerted by Hank, pulled up moments later. The strangers retreated to their vehicle, hurling insults about pointless trusts. Lily comforted the shaken couple. This, she realized, might be the last stand of desperate speculators, but it felt too close for comfort. That evening, Lily met Felix outside the old postmaster's building. Tension etched his brow. He'd just gotten off a call with Megan, who confirmed that certain real estate interests were quietly preparing a legal challenge. They might allege that the trust restricted market freedoms. Lily felt her stomach sink. The entire point of the trust was voluntary protection, not forced compliance. Yet big money often twisted narratives. Felix placed a reassuring hand on her arm, insisting they'd fight any lawsuit vigorously. She managed a thin smile, acknowledging his unwavering support. Side by side, they entered the building, resolved to finalize the harvest logistics, ensuring no rumor or threat would halt the positive momentum. The warmth of their bond steadied Lily, even as her heart pounded with worry. In the following days, the sense of community solidarity was palpable. Farmers helping farmers in the fields, orchard owners delivering crates to new markets, even local teens volunteering after school. The traveling stands thrived, bringing fresh produce and needed revenue. The local news reported on the trust, calling it a beacon of rural empowerment. Lily tried to stay focused on these uplifting signs, but as the harvest neared completion, whispers about an impending lawsuit grew. Commissioner Howe promised daily updates. On a crisp afternoon, Lily found him in the courthouse basement, rummaging through records to be sure everything was in order. The commissioner looked exhausted, yet determined, reminding Lily that she was not alone in this fight. Then, one cool evening, Lily received a text from Felix. "Emergency meeting at your farm. On my way." Confused, she hurried to straighten her small living room. Felix arrived with Megan and Commissioner Howe in tow, all wearing grim expressions. Megan explained that the development group had filed an official complaint, claiming the trust contravened certain free market principles and demanded immediate dissolution. Lily felt her pulse hammer. If a court granted an injunction, farmland owners might panic and consider selling. Commissioner Howe read the complaint. He said it was full of half-truths and rhetorical flourishes, but it could still cause trouble. Lily clenched her fists, refusing to wilt. She'd faced floods that nearly destroyed the valley. She refused to let a handful of profiteers snatch victory away now. They strategized deep into the night, drafting a public response. Megan insisted the trust was legally sound. Felix offered to fund top-tier legal counsel if needed. Commissioner Howe promised to rally local officials. They agreed on a plan: hold a public assembly the next day, reassure everyone that the trust's formation was lawful, and gather statements from supportive landowners. Lily volunteered to speak about how the trust protected farmers who were once targeted by unscrupulous offers. She recalled how her husband's dream was that neighbors never abandon each other. Though tears threatened, she steadied herself. She had to be strong for them all. By 2 a.m, they concluded, exhausted yet resolute. Felix gave Lily's hand a parting squeeze, whispering that they would weather this storm together. At dawn, Lily woke to a pink-tinged sky. She inhaled the scent of dew-kissed fields, reassuring herself that the ground beneath her feet remained steadfast. After a quick round of farm chores, she drove to the community hall, where she found neighbors already assembling. Word had spread. Another trial loomed, but they would face it united. As Lily took the podium, the hush reminded her of the flood days, when everyone watched her distribute the last of her harvest. She clasped the microphone. In a voice laced with quiet conviction, she told them the trust existed to preserve farmland, not thwart prosperity. She vowed that no slick-talking outsiders would force them to relinquish what their hands had rebuilt. Applause shook the rafters, and Lily glimpsed Felix in the crowd, offering an encouraging nod. Clearwater Bay, once battered by waters, now stood defiant against greed. They would not yield. The tension in the community hall was palpable, yet a collective resolve shone in the faces of those who stood shoulder to shoulder, ready to defend the land trust. As Lily stepped away from the podium, the crowd broke into smaller knots of discussion. They spoke quietly, some teary-eyed, others with jaws set firm, all looking for reassurance that the farmland they had fought so hard to restore and protect would remain in their hands. On one side of the room, Commissioner Howe was surrounded by a group of farmers asking about legal timelines. Could a judge shut the trust down on a whim? Would they be forced back into negotiations with those aggressive speculators? Howe calmly explained that the court process took time. Nothing would be decided overnight. "We keep farming," he said, "and we stay vigilant." At another corner, Felix and Megan, the lead legal advisor, conferred with townspeople trying to understand the exact details of the complaint. Megan showed them copies of the legal filing, underlining the points she considered weakest. Though their voices were hushed, Lily could see apprehension in every line of the farmers' faces. She recalled how easily outside players had once sown confusion. Now, the trust was facing its biggest test. Carla Mason lingered near the back, gaze lowered, uncertain if she should stay or go. Spotting her, Lily wove through the crowd. "You doing all right?" she asked softly. Carla offered a tentative nod. "Just feel terrible that I almost brought those creeps in. Now they're still here, just using another tactic." Lily rested a hand on Carla's shoulder. "You're not responsible for their scheme, Carla. You helped us see it in time." Carla let out a shaky breath. "I just wish they'd leave us alone." Lily gave a nod of understanding. She, too, wished for the day these predatory buyers would vanish. Eventually, the gathering wound down. Some neighbors walked out side by side, discussing new harvest goals or how to reinforce the orchard stands. Others lingered, asking final questions. When Commissioner Howe finally declared the meeting adjourned, Lily realized nearly 3 hours had passed. She caught a glimpse of Felix, leaning against the wall near the exit, his expression a mixture of pride and exhaustion. He beckoned her closer. They stepped outside into the late morning sun, which bathed the dusty parking lot in a soft glow. "You handled that crowd brilliantly," Felix told her, voice low. "I think half of them came just to see if you'd reaffirm the fight. They trust your steadiness." Lily blushed, staring at the ground. "I'm just trying to keep everyone from panicking," she replied. "And keep myself from panicking, too." Felix gently lifted her chin, meeting her eyes. "You've done more than that. You've led an entire community to rediscover its strength." The intensity in his gaze stirred something deep within her, a blend of gratitude and an unspoken longing. They wandered toward Lily's pickup, the gravel crunching underfoot. Nearby, an older farmer was hitching his horse trailer, and across the lot, 2 orchard workers chatted about apple shipments. For a moment, Lily and Felix's surroundings seemed almost idyllic, an ordinary day in a rural town. Yet she couldn't forget the threat still looming. "We need a strategy for the next step," she said, voice hushed. "Megan's strong, but I'd like to see if there's a local lawyer who knows the county's quirks." Felix agreed, promising to look into additional legal support. They parted with a quick, discreet squeeze of hands. For the next few days, Lily busied herself with the final phase of harvest. Fields were now ready for the big push, rows upon rows of corn and vegetables at their peak. More volunteers arrived from nearby counties, inspired by media reports of Clearwater Bay's resilience. Trucks lined up at the co-op, loading produce bound for farmers' markets and grocery outlets. Lily rose before dawn, driving her old tractor between parcels, guiding different crews. Despite the legal sword dangling overhead, the farmland had never looked more vibrant. It felt like the earth itself was cheering them on. Early on a Saturday, Lily took a rare half-day away from the fields to accompany Felix and Commissioner Howe to a courthouse in the next county over. There they met with a judge who oversaw preliminary hearings. Megan had requested an early review, seeking to dismiss the frivolous aspects of the developer's complaint. Lily waited outside the judge's chambers, stomach twisting. She hated the notion of farmland being scrutinized in a courtroom, far from the fields where real life unfolded. But if this was the battleground, she'd stand firm. After nearly 2 hours, Felix and Megan emerged, Howe trailing them. Megan looked tired, yet smiled slightly. "The judge sees no immediate reason to freeze the trust," she reported, "but we'll still need a formal hearing next month. At least it's not an injunction." Relief shuddered through Lily. Not a victory yet, but no immediate defeat either. That small reprieve energized everyone. Back in Clearwater Bay, Lily shared the news with neighbors. Some gave spontaneous hugs, others simply clapped her on the shoulder, murmuring, "We'll be ready if they come for us." This solidarity gave Lily hope. She realized how deeply she cared for each and every person, depending on the trust. It was no longer just about farmland. It was about ensuring future generations could thrive here, safe from exploiters. Meanwhile, the closeness between Lily and Felix continued in quiet moments. One evening, after an exhausting day of harvesting, Lily found him waiting at her porch steps. He'd brought a bag of groceries from the local market. "Figured we could cook," he said with a shrug, smiling shyly. Inside her modest kitchen, they prepared a simple stew, chopping vegetables and sharing companionable silence as dusk settled outside. When they finally sat at the small table, lamplight flickering, Lily couldn't help noticing how natural it felt to have him there. The conversation meandered from farm improvements to childhood anecdotes. Over bowls of fragrant stew, they shared soft laughter. Outside, crickets sang. When they finished, Felix helped with dishes. As he dried a pot, he looked at Lily intently. "I'm returning to the city for a few days to handle foundation business," he told her, his tone tinged with regret. "I hate leaving now, but I have to secure more funding streams. I'll only be gone a short while." Lily nodded, trying to mask her disappointment. "The land trust, the co-op, it all needs stable backing," she said. "I know." She followed him to the door, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. With gentle deliberation, Felix leaned in and pressed his lips to hers in a tender kiss. She closed her eyes, letting tension slide from her shoulders. When they parted, he whispered, "Keep yourself safe. Call me for anything." She nodded, heart thrumming. He slipped into the night, leaving Lily feeling both secure in their connection and aware of how deeply she'd miss him. The next morning she poured herself into work, refusing to let melancholy distract her. The orchard stand reported record apple sales, and the co-op's new distribution route was thriving. Local kids, recruited for part-time help, bounced with excitement, priding themselves on being part of a real harvest operation. At midday, Carla Mason showed up at Lily's farm, eager to pitch in. They spent hours in the fields, tossing jokes between hoe strokes, pausing only to sip water under the warm sun. Lily marveled at the changes around her, fields once drenched in floodwaters now brimming with growth, a trust securing futures, and a once skeptical local woman who had become an enthusiastic volunteer. Toward evening, Lily heard distant thunder. Storm clouds gathered on the horizon. She hurried to secure tools and shouted for Carla to help coax the goats back into the barn. By the time the wind picked up, they'd managed to shelter everything. Rain slammed down, lightning cracking the sky. Lily watched from the open barn door, thankful for modern drainage that prevented flooding. Though the storm battered the roof, she felt safe. She remembered the night of the earlier flood, how vulnerable everyone had been. Now, with the land trust and community unity, she felt a sturdy shield around Clearwater Bay. Even nature's fury seemed less daunting. Later, the storm calmed, leaving drenched fields behind. Lily ventured out to assess any damage. Streams of water ran between rows, but the irrigation channels seemed to hold, guiding runoff away from root zones. She smiled, silently thanking Felix for backing the upgrades. Her phone buzzed with a text. She checked it quickly. It was from Felix, letting her know he'd arrived safely in the city and was meeting potential co-funders. He signed off with a simple, "Miss you." Lily's heart clenched with longing, but she tapped back a brief note of encouragement, reminding him to rest when he could. 3 days passed, the community harvest nearly done, trucks rolling out with produce, co-op finances stabilizing. Police patrols reported no fresh sightings of the black SUV. Commissioner Howe said the real estate group seemed to be waiting for their court date. Megan was optimistic about dismissing the complaint. Lily allowed herself a cautious breath of relief, though she remained alert. One cloudless afternoon, she accompanied Carla on a final orchard run, checking that every bushel had been claimed. Sunlight sparkled off the apple crates, and Lily's cheeks warmed. Driving back, the two women chatted freely about their futures, Carla wanting to start a modest orchard project of her own, Lily dreaming of a day when stress ebbed and she could focus solely on farming, maybe even host a small harvest festival again. On the fourth morning, Lily decided to treat herself to a leisurely start, savoring breakfast on her porch. The goats ambled around, nibbling grass. She glanced up at the sky, a brilliant expanse of blue. That's when she saw the plume of dust rising along the driveway. A vehicle approached. Lily tensed, memories flashing of the black SUV. As it drew closer, she realized with relief it was a silver sedan, not the ominous dark shape she'd come to fear. Out stepped a friendly-faced county official. "Good news," he called, waving a packet of papers. Lily climbed down the porch steps, heart skipping. The official explained that a judge in a nearby county, having reviewed preliminary motions, saw no merit in the developer's claims. While a formal hearing was still scheduled, the court signaled strong disapproval of their arguments. "Looks like they're on thin ice," he said, grinning. "Any injunction they hope for is off the table." Lily practically sagged with gratitude. After so many months of turmoil, floods, pollution, predatory deals, and legal threats, here was a genuine sign that Clearwater Bay's triumph might finally be secure. She thanked the official profusely, and once he departed, leaned against her fence, letting the soft breeze caress her. She thought about how proud her late husband would be, seeing her stand at the heart of this transformation. Tears pricked her eyes. She whispered a silent thanks to him for instilling in her the will to protect others. That evening, Lily arranged a spontaneous gathering at the co-op warehouse. Word spread quickly. Townspeople arrived in pickups and on foot. Filled baskets of fresh produce lined the walls, the sweet scent of apples mingling with the grassy perfume of hay bales stacked neatly in a corner. Commissioner Howe announced the judge's leanings, eliciting cheers. Farmers slapped each other on the back, orchard owners hugged, and even the fishermen, who'd once feared irreversible contamination, grinned with relief. Lily stood at the edge of the crowd, chest tight with emotion. She remembered the day she gave away her harvest, how helpless everyone had felt. Now that same community was celebrating a reclaimed destiny. Amid the joyful tumult, Lily's phone buzzed. She stepped aside to answer. It was Felix, his voice bright. "I just heard the good news," he said. "Megan messaged me. I wish I could see your face right now." Lily laughed, tears making her voice waver. "We're at the co-op. The whole town's practically here. We might have an impromptu party if this continues." He chuckled in delight. "I'm finishing up tonight, then driving back first thing in the morning. Save some celebration for me, okay?" Lily promised she would. Warmth flooded her, realizing she no longer stood alone with this burden. She ended the call and slipped back among neighbors who offered her congratulations and teasing remarks about being the town's guiding star. When the impromptu party finally wound down, Lily closed the co-op's big doors under a sky ablaze with stars. Anxiety that had weighed on her for so long seemed to ebb. Though a formal hearing still loomed, the hardest battles felt behind them. She drove home, thinking of Felix returning soon, thinking of how Carla had found redemption, and how farmers once paralyzed by dread were now forging new, stable lives. The floodwaters had receded, not just physically but metaphorically. Their hearts and land had healed together. Parking at her farm, Lily gazed out over the moonlit rows of plants. She recalled the terror of that night when she'd almost lost everything. Now the trust they'd built was strong. She knew challenges would come again. Nature rarely spared farmers from fresh difficulties. But she also knew the spirit of Clearwater Bay was unbreakable. Tucking her hair behind her ear, she whispered, "We made it." Tomorrow, when Felix arrived, they'd move forward with final court preparations, unwavering in their commitment. But tonight, her heart was light. She stepped onto her porch, the wooden planks creaking softly underfoot, and smiled at a future that promised renewal rather than ruin.